It's Debbie Potts, and I'm talking again about VO2 Max and longevity. Your maximal oxygen consumption is a measurement of the maximum amount of oxygen your body can use during intense exercise. So should you test your VO2 Max and know what it is? Let's go into what you need to know.
Welcome to the Low Carb Athlete Podcast, where we focus on discussing topics to help you burn fat, optimize health, and improve performance in life and sports. Transform the whole you from the inside out with the holistic method. Let's dive in. Here's your host, Debbie Potts.
Hey guys, it's Debbie, and have you used a CGM before? CGM is continuous glucose monitor, and there's different options out there. Ideally, you can get it from your doctor, but they seem to just want to wait until you're type 2 diabetic and not be preventative. I would like us to take ownership of our health and make choices now to prevent having high, low glucose readings and optimize your health from the inside out by testing and not guessing. And that includes a CGM that goes on for 14 days, and you can order one via NutriSense. And a CGM is giving you glucose updates with a small device in the back of your arm, 24/7. Totally easy. I actually did a video on my YouTube channel, Low Carb Athlete, how to apply this CGM. First time, kind of scared, but it doesn't hurt. But it gives you real-time glucose readings. Glucose response to meals. You'll learn about what foods are reactive to you, and that could be a healthy food that you think is great, but it could raise your glucose. Simple things as stevia, for me, raise my glucose. Chewing gum, raise my glucose. Stress, when I'm driving a car and there's traffic, raises my glucose. Every stress response is a glucose response. So learn how to manage your stress. Learn how to pick right foods for you, unless you can, do other lab testing and figure out Vibrant Wellness food zoomers, but it's kind of expensive for people. So if you can wear a CGM, it's a great way to learn about stress, food, exercise, stacking movement with your nutrition. Figure out how to balance your blood sugar. So we want to learn more about how to exercise and eat or not eat. And morning cortisol, does it raise your glucose? If there's hidden stressors at nighttime, does your glucose go up higher while you're sleeping? So it gives us lots of clues that we can put in our investigation when we are working on your personalized fueling, training, and performance program to improve fat loss, performance, and longevity. So head to NutriSense website, nutrisense.io, how it works. You can learn more about your habits, your routines, your relationship to food, a little bit more. Great app to use, and it can sync on to different programs, so you can put it all together. So if you want to get started with your journey in NutriSense, I suggest this to all my clients. Use at least 30 days. So you can do a 30-day, 90-day, different programs, but you can pick which one you want. You get the sensor in the mail, put it on, lasts for 14 days, sync it to the app, and get your readings on there. And then if you're doing my VIP coaching program, I'm working with you to correlate this data together. So begin your health optimization journey with NutriSense, and you can save on your order with our code, as usual, Low Carb Athlete. So no carbs is not our goal, it's carb timing, and using NutriSense, you can help figure out your nutrient-dense whole food plan and when to adjust your macros based on your exercise intensity, duration, based on your life stressors, and learn more. So it's nice to have this data. So test and not guess with NutriSense. Let me know how you like it. Before we dive in today, let's talk about our sponsors of the show today. Some of my favorite products that help me fuel, train, and perform my best in life and daily sports. So here we go. Element, S-Fuels, Paleo Valley, Kion are some of my favorite products that I use every week. And you can save and help support the podcast at the same time. Use our code Low Carb Athlete. Enjoy. All right, guys, let's go into VO2 Max once again. What is it? How is it a measurement to predict your longevity? How can you get tested? What other ways can we improve the aging process? So first of all, let's go over again. VO2 Max is the maximal oxygen consumption. It's a measurement. So we need to test and not guess what this is. The formulas, of course, are never 100% accurate, but they're better than nothing. But you can get an idea of where you are. And I'd like to say you don't need to be an athlete, a high-charging athlete, to get a metabolic test done. You should just be curious, hopefully, about improving your aging process and where you are in training and fueling for your future self to be the best version of you in your second half of your life. Now, you might be an active athlete now, but are you healthy from the inside out? You don't know unless you test. So what are some of the markers of longevity, metabolic health? What are the ranges you should be looking at when you get your labs done with a doctor or practitioner that are in functional optimal ranges, not the lab results you get from your doctor that say normal? That is not accurate. It's a very huge range. Look at the numbers on your next blood chemistry test and notice they might be from 50 to 500, and that's in your normal range. So we want to look at all your lab results and do a metabolic test and really look at your microbiome to know how is your health right now. Let's meet you where you're at and set up a personalized program based on where you are right now, and then figure out action items to help improve your future self 5-10 years from now, and then 10, 20, 30 years. So we want to know what is your VO2 max, as that is one of the number one predictors of longevity. So it's a maximal oxygen consumption. We want to measure the amount of oxygen your body can use during intense exercise. It's an important indicator, as I said, cardiovascular fitness and overall health, as well as a predictor of longevity. Now, there's several other factors that come into play, not just what your VO2 max is on a test. So we want to know what your VO2 max is, as well as other data we want to collect to figure out where are you now, and look at what we find when I do a Pinoy test, look at your resting metabolism and your exercise metabolism, and then we can figure out what would your biological age be. So it's pretty cool. Now, cardiovascular health is what we want to look at, your fitness level, your metabolic health, and as we talked about, your biological age, your aging, your VO2 max. So we want to look at testing and improving those markers. So cardiovascular health, we look at the VO2 max. That's why we want to look at this for longevity, is because it's linked to the health of your heart, your cardiovascular system, lung health. So individuals with a higher VO2 max tend to have a healthier cardiovascular system, and this can reduce risk of heart disease and cardiovascular conditions, and ultimately contributing to a longer and healthier, happier life. Now, your fitness level, we know that people with higher VO2 max tend to be more physically active and have better endurance. Regular physical activity has numerous health benefits and longer lifespan. And then we want to look at your metabolic health, and a high VO2 max correlates with better metabolic health, including improved insulin sensitivity and a lower risk for type 2 diabetes. So metabolic health is a really important marker for longevity. And then age, people age, their VO2 max tends to decline. I think if it does decline with age, but if we don't do anything to stay fit and active, it's going to decline. So we can do something about that. So we want to maintain a high level of fitness, including a higher VO2 max, and help counteract the effects of aging, is what I'm talking about all the time here lately, talking about improving or reversing the aging process and not giving into these stereotypes of, oh, I'm getting older. So testing your VO2 max, as well as the strength test and looking at the other biomarkers, we want to track to improve aging process and avoid these common themes that we see as we age. Poor muscle health, poor mobility, joint health, flexibility, strength, and power and speed, and VO2 max. So what you can do to test your VO2 max is called a cardiopulmonary exercise test, CPET. This is the most accurate and involves wearing the mask that I use with Pinoy metabolic testing. And this measures your oxygen in and your carbon dioxide that you exhale during a progressive intense exercise test on a treadmill or bike or anything with watts. So we want something we can measure and increase the intensity every minute to 2 minutes. And there's other protocols. Sometimes we're looking at, for endurance athletes, a different type of test is a 5-minute piece and looking at different heart rates and what fuel source you're using, different intensities. But for measuring your VO2 max, we want to do this 9 to 12 minute protocol. So the other options are our old school, what we used to do in college, the Cooper 12-minute run and other tests, a 6-minute walk test, and all those submaximal tests that we did in exercise physiology in college way back when. You can estimate your VO2 max based on your performance during these submaximal tests. And then, of course, there's equations, which are never totally accurate, but just a ballpark figure that estimate your VO2 max based on age, gender, weight, heart rate, response to exercise. So, of course, they're less accurate than direct testing, but they can give you an estimate, baseline. Now, to improve your VO2 max is another great topic. So you can improve it by aerobic exercise interval training, consistency, and then you can obviously decreasing your VO2 max would be using the excuse as age, because VO2 max naturally decreases with age due to decline in cardiovascular fitness and muscle mass, but we can do something about that, obviously, and we know that. Sedentary lifestyle, well, that's a choice people make to be lazy and be inactive. And of course, you're going to have your VO2 max decrease over time because you're sedentary. And then, of course, health conditions. Heart disease, obesity, lung disease can obviously reduce VO2 max. And then inactivity, extended periods of inactivity such as bed rest or sedentary job can lead to decrease in VO2 max. And I must say, this is a side note, I just thought of when my dad was in the hospital last year and went in it with a back injury he hurt by moving this big fire pit by himself. He went to the hospital because he had some kidney, peeing, urine issues, but other stuff was going on, but he couldn't move. He was already lying on the floor for a week, not even his bed, because he hurt his back. And so he couldn't get up and move on his own. He's in so much pain. But then he had to go to the hospital and he was in bed for 2 weeks. He just disintegrated and everything, I think, shut off partially because he was so inactive, and he just shut down because of various reasons of 3 different health issues he had. But the doctors, nurses did not move him at all. And you're supposed to move every few hours. But because of his back pain, they couldn't get him up by themselves and get him to walk. So yes, inactivity will decrease VO2 max and everything else in your body. Very sad. So VO2 max is not a direct predictor of longevity, my research showed, but it's closely related to various health fitness factors that can influence how long and how well you live. So we know that regular exercise as aerobic and high intensity training, that zone 2, zone 4, 5, we'll talk about HIIT training and sit training, short interval burst training, can help improve and maintain your VO2 max and contribute to a healthier and potentially longer life. Now we go back to what this said to improve your VO2 max, lists the regular aerobic exercise, running, cycling, swimming, brisk walking, aim for 150 minutes of moderate intensity exercise per week, or 75 minutes of vigorous intensity. Now, it also says interval training incorporates high intensity interval training into the routine. HIIT training involves short bursts of intense training with recovery that we'll talk about, and to improve your VO2 max. But how do you know what you need to do right now, whatever you've been doing for your fitness and wellness program today? Where are you in your longevity? What is your biological age? We need to identify what your limiters are. What is your area of opportunity that you should focus on? Say it's fall right now, it's second day of fall. What do you need to do to create a personalized fueling and training lifestyle program to optimize your health and your future self, your longevity? You don't know unless you test and assess and collect clues and put all the data together with a practitioner that understands that this isn't the be end all to do aerobic exercise. You may need to do more interval training. What does that mean for you? What heart rates or watts do you need to hit to make it an interval training? What is your zone 5 and zone 4? What is your zone 1 where you need to recover before you go back to your next interval set? What if you are already doing aerobic exercise and we do a Pinoy metabolic test and we identify with our 9 to 12 minute exercise test, we can identify where you are not doing enough of. So you want to ideally get this test done. Pinoy metabolic test is portable. You can find people where you live that own the equipment that are skilled practitioners, or you can fly to North San Diego and see me. We want to identify where you need to spend more time in each week in your workout schedule to improve your future self, your longevity. So you may be doing too much zone 2 already, or you may be doing all your workouts in zone 3 and you're not doing any zone 2, or maybe you need to do more interval training because you're not doing it right. So if we want to improve our VO2 max, remember that is the upper limit of your aerobic capacity. This is your body's ability to transport oxygen that you inhale from the atmosphere to the working muscles and use it to produce energy, ATP, for your energy required, your activity. So we know that a higher VO2 max is an indication for your aerobic performance, but also a marker in longevity. So we want to test, but knowing that that isn't the only marker you need to look at. There's genetics, age, sex, training status, overall health, as well as I'd like to look at your blood chemistry panel, your GI test results, and really look at what are some other markers. Now, metabolic health is something we want to look at to improve longevity. So not only just testing your VO2 max with me or someone else that does a Pinoy metabolic testing kit, but look at all these other predictors of metabolic health, metabolic disease, right? So we want to look at blood glucose levels. Fasting blood glucose, you want between 70 to 90. You want to keep it says under 100, but you don't want it lower than 70. Remember, less is not better. So like when we look at lipids, lower cholesterol isn't better. You need some. It's that Goldilocks effect for all these markers. Hemoglobin A1C, you want to get it under 5.6. Pre-diabetes, they say, is 5.7, but a lot of people say 5.6 or higher to 6.4. Diabetes, they say, is 6.5% or higher. Oral glucose tolerance test, that's another test to do. It's 2 hours post-low glucose. You want to see it under 140. Pre-diabetes level, 2 hours post-low glucose. You take a sugar drink, and if your markers are 140 to 199, and more diabetes is 200 or higher. Then we want to look at your lipid profile, total cholesterol, what is optimal, LDL cholesterol, your HDL, and your triglycerides. We want to look at your blood pressure, your BMI, which I hate because it's body weight, doesn't look at your fat. I'd rather look at your fat percentage, and look at your lean body mass. Now we got waist circumference. That's also old school, I think, is looking at your height, weight, but waist circumference is good in itself. And liver test, your ALT and AST, they're indication of non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. So we want to look at your blood chemistry a little bit different. I think a lot of people are not getting the right answers from their doctor. As I go back tomorrow to my doctor to go over my results that I took and put in our functional ranges. But you have to look at, I'm just opening mine up, but like my iron, super low. I'm probably anemic. I probably have my low thyroid panel, looking at your total T4, free T4, total T3. Your free T3 is what you want to look at, what's more available. reverse T3 antibodies, and more. But we want to look at lipids a little bit differently, that your lipids tell us a lot, and doctors look at it differently. So we want to look at the cholesterol being 170 to 200, triglycerides 70 to 80, HDL and functional, this is my functional ranges, 55 to 85, and LDL cholesterol 80 to 100. So we want to look at that. We want to look at your ferritin being 50 to 100, serum iron being 85 to 130. Vitamin D, we want to look at 60 to 80. A1C, we want 4.5 to 5.5%. Insulin, we want 1 to 5. And histamine, you can get, but really get CRP is really important. And for women, CRP is under 1.5, and for men, it's 0.55. And looking at other markers, and then of course your hormones. But I really wish people would get all the right lab work and put that into correlation when we're doing looking at your metabolic health and looking at your VO2 max as a sign of longevity. But what other markers are we looking at? So you can look at your VO2 max to measure your cardiovascular health, your metabolic health, your resiliency. But what else can we look at? And I think getting the blood chemistry panel, looking at, are you prone to type 2 diabetes? Look at obesity, hyperlipidemia, metabolic syndrome, PCOS, your fatty liver disease, and looking at the test from a functional lens versus your traditional doctor is going to look at normal, which are lab results based on the average sick person. So not our optimal functional ranges. Getting your CRP is really important, and looking at all this. So that's really important to look at. How healthy am I? Fit and healthy from inside out for metabolic health and longevity markers, not just your VO2 max. So that's just a side note, but we want to look at testing our cardiovascular health with, as I said, PNOE that I do, or there's markers you can do, field tests, there's mafetone, but we're not measuring a direct measurement you need with a mask on. So we're actually measuring your volume of oxygen in and what level of carbon dioxide you're exhaling. And that's what we do with PNOE. It's a measurement of your oxygen consumption and carbon dioxide. So we can measure that in the active test, and then we do a resting metabolic test, and this determines your basal metabolic rate. Your RMR represents the number of calories you burn at rest to maintain essential function as breathing, circulation, and cell maintenance. And this is the energy expenditure required to keep your body alive at rest. So then we can kind of guess what calories you need based on your activity level. And then we look at your body fat and your lean body mass. Now, we can also tell what fuel source you're using at rest and during different intensities while you exercise. So we're looking at your fat fuel use versus your carbohydrate fuel use. We analyze your metabolic efficiency. How effectively do you convert oxygen into energy? Inefficient metabolism may suggest areas of improvement, opportunities for you, areas of opportunity to work on through your nutrition and training. So we want to figure out what is the best way for you to fuel and train to be a healthy and active athlete, individual as you age, right? So we want to test all that and figure out what you should do now. So that getting the right blood chemistry markers is the first place to start. Now, with the metabolic testing, we look at the different zones. So we've talked previously on other episodes, I've talked about the 5 zones, and Dr. or Daniel Crumback will talk about that a little bit more. And we measure your oxygen and carbon dioxide out, as I said, but then from that we can tell your ventilatory thresholds, so VT1 and VT2. Your RER is a respiratory exchange ratio, your fuel switches, fat to carb, your breath frequency, your volume of oxygen you're breathing in, and more. So we get so many more data points and create that personalized program with this result. And then I put it with your blood chemistry, genetic test, and look at your nutritional therapy assessment. So we need to know what exercise intensity right now do you switch fuel sources. What is the zones that you need to be in a little bit more to improve your different energy systems. Because we want to be strong in all areas and not just focus on just zone 2 or just zone 5. Sometimes we can identify, hey, you've been doing really good optimizing that zone 2, that aerobic function, but we're not doing enough in zone 5. So let's kind of switch up. We've done the base training. Now let's work on developing a different training program this next quarter. Because zone 1, the fuel source is free fatty acids. Zone 2, aerobic glycolysis. Zone 3 is more anaerobic glycolysis. Zone 4 is the lactate phosphorylation. And then zone 5 are those short, high-intensity interval training using ATP, PC, phosphotidylcreatine. I think I got it right. Now, we want to look at where your areas of opportunity are and then create an exercise program, figure out what zones you need to be in. Now, remember, the zone 2 and zone 5 will help improve mitochondria. So we figure out what your 5 zones are based on your metabolic test results, and we give you a big report, and then we can figure out what area you need to work on. So when we figure out your training program, we look at your resting metabolic test results, and we can figure out, okay, what fuel source are you using at rest? What are you doing with your breathing efficiency, looking at your metabolism, how many calories you're burning, all of that. And then we can put in your body composition. We can get some good feedback of, okay, you need to increase your lean body mass. Let's focus a little bit more in your training on adding in resistance training. Maybe we can find, okay, I need a little more interval training. So we have these 3 different areas for training that we want to address: the cardiovascular training, the high intensity interval training, and your strength training. And then in that HIIT training, you might add the plyometrics and the short intensity interval training within the HIIT training, right? So we've talked about what Dr. Stacy Sims recommends for aging female athletes. We need to do a little bit more of HIIT training and less of this long, slow zone 2 work. Now, when we do the test, remember, we're creating a personalized training program. So we can identify if you are inefficient at burning fat. And then we can figure out a program from that. We can look at, hey, you need to do a little bit more higher intensity. Your marker on the test results, when we went up to zone 4 and 5, you really decreased your efforts. And so we can really figure out some good feedback from the test. Now, how does this help your aging process? Well, we're creating a program based on where you are right now, identifying your limiters, and then we can put that together with your sleep, your stress management, your movement throughout the day, not just your exercise, but let's look at your lifestyle holistically and nutrition. So we have the 4 types of training: cardio, interval, resistance, and the respiratory is the 4th one. So breathing exercises. And each type of training, as I said, has multiple subtypes. So the resistance training, what type of training? Dr. Stacy Sims for women would say lift heavy stuff, right? 3 to 6 repetitions, 3 to 5 sets, adding in some plyometrics, some high intensity intervals in there, and mobility, of course. And then the resistance types, or the interval type, would be, zone 3 is more tempo pieces, zone 4 is more the 1 to 5 minute pieces, and then I think of zone 5 as doing the 10, 30-second sprints. So we want to work on respiratory too. If you really have bad scores and your area of opportunity, your limiters are in respiratory, we can't work on the other part unless we work on the respiratory capacity. So Daniel Crumbeck tells us respiratory capacity before capability. So we can't work on just doing these high intensity interval trainings unless you learn how to improve your breathing. So there's great exercises you can do that we know a lot of people talk about, including Laird and Hamilton and Gabby. They have a great program that I want to go through. So we identify your need, we figure out the plan, and then we can improve your aging process, right? So you have more specific goals and action items, and then we can look at what you're doing nutritionally. But we want to test and not guess and figure out where your scores are lower And then remember, there's different benefits in each zone. So when we're doing Pnoe metabolic testing, we'll figure out your 5 zones. Some people have a little bit more. But go back and listen to my other heart zone training seminar as I did on YouTube channel. Zone 1 improves fat burning and increases oxygen delivery to the muscles without really using a lot of fuel. You're just more focused on recovery. So zone 1 is more your recovery zone. And then zone 2 is what we talk about. Well, everyone's talking about zone 2 is your area to improve your VO2 max. If you've been listening to my podcast for 10 years, you know that we've always talked about phil-maffetone. The maffetone method is a max aerobic function heart rate to create that base as endurance athletes, and then work on speed work when you're not getting results anymore and add in a weekly speed session. Now, zone 2 benefits are improving aerobic capacity, muscle metabolism through increased mitochondrial density and capillarization. And then we get to zone 3, that improves your VO2 and cardiovascular health and increases cardiac strength and improvements in oxygen dependent storage and lactate shuttle. And then we've got zone 4, where we do those high intensity intervals. That's improving anaerobic capacity through improvements in buffering capacity. And then zone 5, we improve anaerobic capacity, VO2 max, and muscle metabolism, as this increases your mitochondrial density and cell health. So that is short, high intensity intervals, improves your VO2 max. So we know zone 2 and zone 5 improve VO2 max. But someone starting out, they're not going to be able to do zone 5, and a lot of people don't like to push themselves that hard. So that's one limiter for people even testing their VO2 max. You're not going to get an accurate test if you do all out to your peak oxygen consumption, because a lot of people don't feel comfortable doing that. They get scared and they stop before they get that high of a heart rate. So we have to use more the formulas and guess where they would be. Now, zone 2, as I said, is a good marker for what we hear about for longevity, improving your VO2 max down there. But as I've said previously, if you're like me, you've been doing the long, slow distance as an Ironman, marathon, trail runner, long distance athlete, you might find, especially us aging females who have lower estrogen levels and progesterone, that we need more zone 4-5 down to zone 1 intervals. And that is a better solution for us to improve our VO2 max longevity if you've already done a lot of zone 2. But you don't know where you are right now unless we do this test, because then we can figure out, oh, yeah, we're doing way too much in zone 3, or you're doing not enough in zone 2, or you're doing way too much high intensity. Your zone 2 is not very effective at burning fat. So we want to look at all these different intensities, and it's only a 9 to 12 minute test, but then we get just kind of a brief overview, and then we can create your ideal workout program for the next month to 3 months. So the workout programming is pretty cool part. We can figure out how much intervals, cardio and resistance training you should be in, and figure out the cardio. Sometimes it's just good one time a week to do a zone 2 workout. Maybe on Sundays you do an hour and a half hike and you get your heart rate in zone 2. I think a lot of people go walking that aren't really athletes. They like to just walk to get their exercise, but I know walking, my heart rate doesn't even go up over 100. So if you're not a runner, you might want to start riding a bike and get a comfortable bike that you enjoy going on the trails, or on a paved bike path that's safe. And so you have to figure out other ways to get that heart rate to zone 2. So cardio training, if we do that once a week or more to maintain a metabolic fitness. If we want to improve our metabolic fitness, we want 2 to 3 times a week. And then when we are fit enough and built up that base, we can add in those zone 5. Maybe we start with zone 3 intervals down to zone 1, and we get comfortable there. Then we work towards zone 4. And then when we feel like we've created more base, we can hit zone 5. Now remember, zone 3 is more tempo, 10 to 20 minute pieces. Zone 3 to 4, kind of the top of zone 3, bottom of zone 4 is more long intervals, 5 to 10 minutes. Zone 4 itself is 30 to 90 seconds. And then zone 5 would be the 10 to 30 second short sprints. So medium sprints on here says 30 seconds to 90 seconds, so not real long. So your zone 3 to bottom of zone 4 is where that tempo 5-10 minutes is. And then zone 3, 10 to 20 minutes. So remember, zone 3 isn't staying there. I see a lot of people just stay in zone 3 probably for an hour or two when they're doing run groups with people and cycling groups with their friends. So we want to remember zone 3, 10 to 20 minutes. Take recovery session would be 4 to 8 minutes. So that is, I've talked about this before, a 2.5 to 1 minute ratio. So if you're doing a 10-minute piece, go down to zone 1 or zone 2 for 4 minutes. And then you're coming back up 10 minutes and then come back down 4 minutes, zone 1. So it's tough, but if you want results, you need to actually do the right recovery period in zone 1, which most people do not do right. So you're not truly doing the right type of training. And we might identify that when we test. So we reveal these imbalances in your body through functional lab tests and the metabolic test. So remember, interval training, we want to use this in all different, depends on your benefits, what we need to work on, your limitations. So zone 1 is recovery. Zone 3 and zone 5 are for cardiovascular limitations that we identified in the testing and assessments. Zone 4 and or zone 5 for metabolic limitations. So if you don't do as well at high intensity intervals, that's where we need to focus on. Not every day. We're not doing what Dr. Rhonda Patrick said. She does intervals every day. But she doesn't do intervals. She probably does more zone 3, zone 4 tempo because she's doing it for 12 minutes. Now, zone 5, metabolic limitations would be your test results. So we need more work here and with the zone 2 cardio. So then we want zone specific for respiratory capability limitations. So we'll work on breath work. So that's why we want to test. We want to figure out how we need to stress the system. And Dr. Stacy Sims talks about this for the female, that we need to work on doing these short stressors, acute stress, not long stuff, because that's going to be more of a chronic stress. It's harder to recover from. So these short bursts of all out efforts are going to help you be more resilient than long cardio sessions up in that zone 3. So we become less resilient as we are older for females with our hormones getting lower. That I am understanding this as we need to do key workouts, more strength training and less cardio, and doing more HIIT training when you're feeling good and getting those zone 4, zone 5 workouts with the zone 1 recovery, and not depend on this long, slow distance stuff to lose weight and change your body composition, because it's probably not working for you if you've been doing that. As myself, I haven't been seeing any changes in my body composition, just getting worse. And I obviously need to change what I'm doing, right? As I always say, insanity, doing the same program over and over again, expecting different results. So if I don't see my body composition changing favorably for what I'm trying to get, what my outcome is that I would like to see, I need to switch it up and try a different approach. So that would be for me doing more 400-meter repeats with 100-meter recovery. Maybe I'm doing more of the days in the gym, doing 3 to 6 reps of heavy weights and doing more box jumps and rope slams and ball slams in between my heavy weightlifting, and doing the core work and doing single leg squats and lunge to step ups and all that kind of stuff, rather than doing 4 days of running for an hour. So we want to use these tables that I give clients to figure out how to do intervals correctly, a really long warm up and a long cool down, and that main set is your interval training with a proper recovery. So we want to stress the system but recover. So remember, acute stress is turn the faucet on, turn it off. Chronic stress is just leave the faucet running. So you want to switch that up. So get your metabolic analysis at rest and during exercise. Get the report. Work with a practitioner that understands how to read the results and correlate that data with your current program, your current signs and symptoms in a nutritional therapy assessment. Look at your exercise, food, and mood log, and look at what your goals are coming up in areas of opportunity. From that, we can create that personalized program. Ideally, get your tests results, blood chemistry test results, and the DNA company I would look at, and really look at the whole picture. So me, the practitioner person, can put the missing pieces of your health and fitness and longevity program together, so we know what you need as a unique individual and stop guessing what to do. So let's figure out what you can do where you live to get started. So head to debbiepotts.net and send me any questions, and we can find someone to help you locally, and I can help you with assessing the test results if they cannot. All right, so let's work on improving the aging process, improve your longevity markers by testing where you are now, so you know if you need to do more zone 2, or if you need to do more interval training, or maybe you need less chronic cardio and more time lifting heavy weights and doing lifestyle habits and supplementing where you need to, but really working on your nutrition, exercise, sleep, stress, and all the other lifestyle habits first. Build that foundation up. Okay, so I think that's it for today. Just had those thoughts as I keep listening to other podcasts, and I'm frustrated of just hearing zone 2, zone 2, zone 2. Well, I've been doing zone 2. That's not what I need to do. So let's not give it a one-size-fits-all approach. We are all unique and different. Our lifestyle habits, our exercise history is different, and our blood chemistry markers are going to be different. You might have other things going on under the hood that you don't know about unless you test. So let's stop guessing and start testing and get a personalized assessment done, so you're not just wasting time. So save some money up and do some good labs, or look at Ulta Lab, and then we can order functional labs on Rupa Health that you can just get delivered to you, and then we can assess. But don't wait until you're struggling. Take ownership of your health now. All right, that's all I have to say today. I'll get off my soapbox. Hey, my fellow aging endurance athletes, just a reminder, if you like what you listened to today, make sure to share this episode with your community. Head to debbiepotts.net to set up a free discovery call to learn more about my personalized coaching programs, especially if you are on a mission as myself to improve the aging process and start training to be my best self when I am 80, 90 years old. So I am on a mission to live my best life and be my best self the second half of my life. So if you're on the same mission as me, head over to my website and YouTube channel to learn more ways to improve the whole you from the inside out with the holistic method.
Thanks for listening to the Low Carb Athlete Podcast. If you have any questions, feedback, or topic suggestions, let us know on Facebook or at debbiepotts.net. You can help us continue and grow by leaving a review on iTunes. Thanks again, and see you next time.